But no, that there are things that you do not do. That you do realize.
Well, actually, the intro is
that basically
there are things
that you shouldn't. That a police officer will not tell you that you shouldn't do, and that they will do. Rule number 1: if an officer stops you for any offense, don't take your hands off of the steering wheel of your automobile.
Oh, yeah.
Don't reach into your pocket to get a ticket, get a license out. Don't reach into your glove compartment. Always keep your hands on the steering wheel. And they said, rule number 2.
Oh, actually, back on that. The reason I heard behind this, and you can enlighten me, is that then the officer knows that your hands are there and you're not doing anything.
That's right.
Because one of the biggest things for officers is pulling somebody over because they have no idea who they just pulled over.
That's right.
And that somebody could just pull a gun on them.
That's why there's generally 2 officers in a car and 1 officer goes off to the side. But the second rule is never ask the officer what they do wrong.
Really?
That's right. Because never ever he basically said you do not talk to an officer unless he asks you a question.
Really?
They do not, basically, that's another thing. Officers, whether they will admit it or not, do have quotas to do on the streets every day because I figured it once out, it was like, I think it was $200 and some thousand. Every police officer is worth $200 and some thousand to the police department in tickets that they write. And the majority, rule, another thing.
Well, okay, like you talked about not having quotas, right? And they won't admit that they do. No. But they give them so many ticket books to fill up.
My father would come in, and they would say that you got 2.5 books to fill out today, and don't come back until they're filled. So. And my father rode with another guy, and basically, it was like on ships. They did used to send 2 motorcycle officers out together.
Really?
And there would be 5 ticket books between the 2 of them. They had to fill out.
Oh, geez, it's not 2.5 for the team. It's
2.5 per. It's a 2.5 fund per city. It's always on funds, but.
Which means 5 ticket books.
Yeah, and
wow.
They're basically another thing is that you can never. Basically, an officer can write you a citation for virtually anything because there's no such thing as driving down the street, parking, or anything, and we're not violation of vehicle code.
Why do you say that?
Because everything you do is a basic violation. Okay, that is that's not our.
What?
Those are not proper signals. They can say, well, you give an improper right, left, stop signal.
Oh.
Yeah, if they see you with the arm leaning out of your car, basically there is no. My father said they taught that in the course. There is no driver that could ever drive from point A to point D without breaking a vehicle code.
Well, and there's a lot of things that you don't even think about. Like you have to stop behind a crosswalk.
Yep.
You have to signal so many feet beforehand that you're turning.
Right, and other things. Officers, my father said he would deliberately, him and his partner would deliberately ride behind, when they needed to give tickets, they would deliberately ride behind people, but force the people into doing something wrong.
Well, yeah, because anytime a police officer's in back of you, you always get nervous.
Yeah.
So, remember, if, there's, in California you can turn right on red, well that also means there's a crosswalk, you have to stop before the crosswalk,
yep.
Right? You have to ease up, take a look before you turn.
You have to give this proper signal for doing it too. There's a lot of functions you got to do.
So if you took a right on red and you didn't stop behind the crosswalk, you could get a ticket.
Yeah.
Right?
You can be given a ticket for having a cracked front or rear view mirror if in the officer's interpretation that is a driving hazard.
Oh, you know what? One day you were driving with me and you thought he was going to pull me over until I saw you. I went to the gas station and I couldn't get my receipt, so I never put the cap back in there and closed the thing.
No, he came up, he was following us for a long distance, came up alongside us, and then I looked out the window, and I'm all nice and white and blonde haired, and he said, just wanted to tell you there's a problem with your gas thing, and then he drove off real quick. Mm-hmm. That was a ticket run because he was on the other side of us. Mm-hmm. He could not have known there was a problem with the gas tank because he's riding alongside, basically all they can see is her in the car, and then he slows down, and then comes around and tells us, but once again you couldn't see there's a problem with it because they got a cover that comes over it. So then he comes around the other side, and I reach out to look at him, and then he said, and then he rolls down and says, "Oh, you got a problem with the, you know, your cap isn't on." So, but it was a ticket run. I know what a ticket run is like.
Yeah. Also, you call it driving while old.
There's it's a DWO, which is called driving while, actually a DWOD, which is what they want to tell you is called driving while old and disabled. If you have a disabled tag on your car, you're just you just light up every police officer in every city in the country.
Why do they do that?
Because people my age have to be able to get around. If you ticket them, they got to pay that ticket no matter what it's going to cost them in order to keep mobile. They know it. So it's a very easy ticket to give people.
So basically, and then it's not the official name of the ticket. Basically what they do is they see you, follow you, let you make a mistake, and then they give you a ticket.
Yeah, but it is the unofficial name, DW.
Well, they had one before called driving while black.
Yeah, but it's a DWOD, driving while old and disabled, is the unofficial thing, because if they, like I said, my father had disabled tags on his car, and basically he finally told him to stop giving him disabled tags because they pull him over and then he'd reach in and pull out his ID. They don't give tickets to another police officer. That's not done, folks, on their families. So when that happens, it tends to piss people off. Yeah, so that's another thing. But they generally don't do that. It's professional courtesy. But they would just single him out every time they see those disabled tags. They would come after
your dad.
Yeah.
Really?
And he's a police officer. But he had, which they said, well, he was disabled. Yeah, my father was 100% disabled from World War II. There's a difference between being able to function and not being able to function. My father was a career military officer, so when he couldn't function as a military officer anymore, as far as they're concerned, you're totally disabled. So eventually it did cause problems. He had that massive heart problems, and he had to have his legs worked on multiple times. But no, there's other things. Basically they can almost get you on lights, on turns and stops, rolling stops. Like I said, there's anything, you are subject to a ticket for virtually anything you do, because unlike health insurance, which the president says that they can order you to buy, driving is a privilege. Breathing air isn't. And to drive, I don't drive anymore because I get in trouble because I obey the law, which is another thing. If you completely obey every single one of the things, they'll pull you over. They absolutely will pull you over for not speeding.
Stand out.
Yeah. If you don't speed in the carpool lane, they'll pull you over.
Because you're going too slow for the flow of traffic.
I know, but the problem is the carpool lane has the same laws as the other lane. So, if somebody's driving 100 miles an hour behind you and you're driving 70, his 100 is wrong, they'll pull you over before they'll pull the guy over 100. So, if...
and the moral is not to drive 100.
That's right. Lane changes will get you in trouble with a lot of police officers. What you consider a normal lane change, you got to remember, if you just don't merge into lanes, folks, it's against the law. You must give a sig lane.
Yeah, you do.
You must not pull in front of somebody. You must have enough room to properly pull in.
Well, the other part is, if you pull in too close, then you're tailgating.
That's right. But most people pull in when they can get in. If they're wanting, a lot of people, the problem is if they use the carpool lane, you're almost always 4 lanes away from where you need to be. So they start their move over, and they start their move over by just zipping in the lanes. That's a no-no. Another no-no, folks, a big no-no. Motorcycle riders riding between vehicles is a no-no.
Oh, really?
You are not to ride in between the cars. They got 2 cars, one like this, one like that. You are not to ride in between. They can ticket you for that.
But if the cars are parked, right? In other words, they're going way too slow. Can't they go through them?
No.
Oh, I thought
because
they could.
That is a technicality. If we're talking about technicalities, basically they tend to ignore it because motorcycles But the problem is why they don't like it is because all of a sudden something has to go like this and the motorcycle rider is basically finished. Also, a motorcycle may not pass on the right side of a vehicle in the far lane.
Really?
It is against the vehicle code law to pass on the right side of a vehicle in the far lane, in the right-hand lane. That's
Really?
a no-no.
Oh.
That goes for motorcycles the same as a car. A car may not pass on the right-hand side to get around. A motorcycle is considered a two-wheel motor vehicle. If it passes on the right-hand side, it's technically a violation of the law.
And see what we mean? It's like about anything. It's like you breathe and you could practically get a ticket.
That's what my father said. My father, they said they would, if a person basically throws a cigarette butt out a window, it's against the law. If you spit out the window, it's against the law. If you're dumping your drink outside the window because you spilled it, it's against the law. There are.
If you're talking on your cell phone,
it's against the law. If they catch you talking on a cell phone and you're still, and it doesn't make any difference if you're using a speaker thing. If the cell phone is in your lap, that's a no-no. If you're watching, technically, if you're watching your GPS system, it's against the law. If they fill it, because if you're listening to a radio and changing the channel, you're in violation of the law.